All right.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on right now. So who are you drafting?
Well, this be a short, short scrum here. We've got it down to just a few guys, and still finalizing what we're going to do. We still have a little bit of time yet, but we've got a pretty good idea.
What's going to be the ultimate factor that points to one guy or another?
Yeah, there's, I like to make it that simple, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot of variables that we have to look at. Obviously, best player is big. It's probably the number one, factor. But there's others. The ability to sign him, how quickly he may or may not be here. Need, how it impacts, our roster in that particular position or positions. If we think he's versatile to play more than one, all those things have to be considered.
A couple of McMaster guys in the mix. Are they in consideration for number one?
All guys are in consideration, at this point. And again, I can say that I'll at least say this: we're leaning towards somebody that can help us, right away. Doesn't mean we'll do that, but that's our leaning right now.
Having said that, it sounds like you're considering keeping that number one pick instead of, as many people speculated, you may have been trading it away.
Yeah, no, I don't know where that. We've been approached quite a bit about it, but we're comfortable with where we're at right now. Obviously, like I've said, I've been consistent. If we have an offer that we feel like helps our football team more, then we'll look at it. It's about improving the football team.
So the potential for an 11th hour trade could still come?
Well, sure. I mean, if we feel like it's a better situation that helps the Hamilton Tiger Cats, then we have to look at it. I would not be doing my job if we didn't.
Does the signability of the player long term make a difference? Like, would you be more inclined to select guys that are, say, based in the East, or?
That's all speculation as well. I certainly know the trend in the league, and I think our guys do a great job here. Drew does an unbelievable job in getting the full background of the young man. His past, his family history, his ties, as you've mentioned, all of those things. And it's not a perfect science in trying to ferret that stuff out, but at the end of the day, we do look at that. How we do it might be a little bit different than other teams, but that's certainly a factor. I don't think it's not going to be the sole determining factor, because we just have to look at the kid's personality, his independence, those types of things. We feel pretty confident. We have a great organization, a great environment here, great coaching staff, and that young men that come into this organization, hopefully we encourage well enough to stay with us long term.
How would you assess this draft in terms of talent? How would you see it? Is it a deep draft? Is it top heavy?
It depends on the position. Honestly, I mean, I think there's some good futures talent in this draft. Some guys that possibly may not even be available for a long time. They're that good, but. Again, it just depends. It depends on the position. The NFL came in and signed quite a few guys, but even that's a projection on determining whether we think they'll stick or not stick.
Is part of this is the fact that this is your first year? Is there a challenge in the fact that often drafts are built year over year, right? In the sense that you build a ratio plan over a period of time, you're trying to develop that. In your case, you're taking over an organization. Yeah. It's your first draft, you have a first overall pick, but you haven't been able to, just because you haven't been here, build a sort of a long-term plan around how you're going to run your ratio. So that add to the challenge?
We have a plan, but the draft is only one piece of it. It's the current roster, the guys you have currently on the roster. We've made some off-season moves that have impacted that as well, and we have a philosophy on what we want to do on the ratio. Doesn't mean we'll get there, or certainly doesn't mean we'll get there as fast as we want to. But we have a plan in place on how we want to operate here, and some of it's in your control, some of it's not, as you know. And but the draft is only a piece of it. There's other ways to reconfigure your ratio the way you want it to.
Kent, how many immediate impact guys are in this draft right now that you're eyeing or other teams would be eyeing?
Well, I haven't counted them up. When you say impact, it depends on, do you think they can actually play a position and be a starter, be a rotational guy, or just a special teams guy? There's different levels. There's a couple guys I think that possibly fit in both. I don't think there's many guys, if you will, that can come in and be an immediate starter in that particular position. But there might be one or two.
Every team has an under the radar list.
Yeah.
How big is yours?
Well, qualifying it as under the radar would assume, the premise is that you assume that other teams don't know them. I'm pretty sure that other teams do a pretty good job of finding those kids too. So I certainly wouldn't be arrogant enough to think that we found players that others haven't, right? So we go with the premise and the understanding that everybody has done a great job. Organizations, and I'm sure they have done a great job in preparing for the draft, and we'll act accordingly.
There's clearly some positions that are inherently occupied by Canadian talent, but is it important for you to have Canadian depth overall in your team at plenty of positions? And is that one of the things that you're clearly, is that one of the things that perhaps, but how's that going to come into play in this draft?
Yeah, well, it's going to come into play based on what we currently have, and who we currently have under contract, and then the evaluations of those guys. And you understand too, now my staff has not been with any of these players in pads yet. We haven't coached them, so we're at a little bit of a deficit with respect to our evaluations, because simply right now it's based off of film, and even that you have to bring a context to, because the backdrop is not knowing what they were actually asked to do, right, schematically and when they were on the field, and don't know all the missed assignments and those types of things that you grade, because the other staff has them. It's no longer here. So that being said, you build a great football team up here first with your Canadian talent. So I think they've done a really good job here before even I got here, and I think we've improved that in the off season, and certainly with the dispersal draft coming up, it's important that we're pretty deep.
You kind of touched on it, but is there any benefit to drafting local talent?
The guy's a good player, a great player, and meets some of the other criteria that I've already mentioned. But it's not a premium, if that's what you're asking. We need a guy that can impact our football team. Hopefully, can be a long-term player for us, be a great player that has the skill sets commensurate with the ability to win championships. We'll deal with the locality issue, after the fact. Unless we find out through the interview process that that's really, really important, and he's not from here, then that will factor in, and our decision is at some level on whether we want to take him.
This organization traditionally has used futures picks to develop guys, and that has been a trend throughout the league. Has that become a bit riskier in the last couple of years, as some of these futures picks have had strong senior seasons and garnered NFL interest?
In light of the longevity of head coaches? Or in light of doing right for the organization? Listen, that is a factor, right? And I mentioned it before. Some of those guys might be the better players, or certainly at the top of the list of a group of players, as just athletically and as just overall football players. But if you're not going to see them for 4 or 5 years, this is a what are you doing right now business, and we have to win now, and I understand that. At the same time, I have to balance that with my responsibilities to build quality depth in this organization. We have staying power with respect to challenging for championships, and I understand that. And so walking that line is something that I take very, very seriously, and that I feel like I'm doing.
Given that, how is Ottawa's inclusion this year going to impact the draft?
Well, they're going to take a bunch of futures kids off the board on their picks, so it's going to impact it. I don't think you're going to see, I could be wrong, because there'll always be surprises. I know when I was up here before, there was a lot of surprises on draft day, and I'm sure that's still the case. But that being said, just generally speaking, theoretically, you probably won't see as many quality futures picks in the later rounds that you might have because of that situation.
How about the fact that the draft's now going an extra round?
Yeah, that's
Doesn't
great.
matter?
No. I mean, we're preparing either way, so that's fine.
You still able to sign 2 kids after the draft is over and put them like
No, non-counters?
non-county? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that-
I know there
that
was
hasn't
talk, I was
changed?
told there's talk, in the past about adding a couple rounds and eliminating that, but that hasn't been done yet.
Okay. Does the draft itself, does the fact that Ottawa's coming next year, that also had to be taken into consideration, the fact that the dispersal draft is coming up? Is that part of your thinking process at all?
Yeah, and the dispersal that's
Yeah.
coming up as well. Certainly, you better think about that. And but again, guys, nobody has a crystal ball. It's all speculation, and we can mock draft all we want and get surprised, in any pick. So we'll do the best we can to prepare. We know what our needs are. We know what we really want to do, and we'll factor in all of those things. But we don't weigh them all the same. At the end of the day, we want great football players.
Is that how you're going to spend the next day and a half, going through mock draft after mock draft?
Yeah, I just met yesterday. Well, we've been meeting quite a bit, but we finalized the offensive side. We finalized the defensive side. Tomorrow we'll reorder. And then we'll tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday we'll go through some mock drafting.
Still don't want to tell us who you're going to pick?
No, because we're pretty fond of 2 or 3 guys, and we're still working through it. I could say this though: we are, and again, I'm not committing to this, but we are leaning towards somebody that can have an immediate impact.
Kent, football fans, fantasy football fans always look forward to the draft. It's the highlight of the year. Are you looking forward, are you excited about drafting a new crop of stars?
I'll be excited if we get who we want. No, listen, it's great for these guys, right? It's their day. It's obviously a great, it's a great day for the CFL, for the member clubs, but more importantly for the individual players. I mean, it's exciting for them. There are some real talented guys and that are going to have long careers, and it's all part of it. It's all good.
There isn't really a consensus number 1 guy though in this draft, right? Like in previous years, there has the year the last time this team had the number 1 pick, Simeon Rotier was sort of a consensus number 1. There isn't that guy this year just because of the NFL, because of a lot of things, right? There isn't a consensus number 1 guy at this point. Is that fair to say?
Are you telling me? Or
I'm asking you.
Oh.
Is that?
So that is a question.
It is a question.
Okay.
It's a premise with a question.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
But I know why you say that. I think, but I'm not sure. I think it depends on the team. I mean, it's again we project what other teams' needs are and how they've configured their ratio and what they did in previous drafts that may or may not have worked out. Those types of things, but. There are some guys that are clearly, I think, the best players in this draft.
Are they ranked among the top 10 that are in the rankings right now?
For me,
For you?
well, they're ranked at the top of the list.
No, I mean in the what came out in the scouting the rankings. How close are they? I think maybe that's perhaps what.
To what, CFL rankings?
Yes.
Well, I don't even look at that. Yeah, I mean, it's not an offense to the people that do that work. It's just I've hired my guys and our personnel department and our coaches for a reason. I mean, we'll look at it the way we want to look at it.
So does yours then?
I don't give any
vary?
credence to the other rankings.
So you haven't looked at them at all, or are you saying that yours
Oh, I
varies
didn't say I haven't
completely
looked at them.
from?
I just don't pay
So-
attention to it.
So then yours varies completely from what?
I didn't
it
say
says?
that. I just said we're gonna rely on what we have determined is the best process for evaluation based on all the previous criteria that I've already mentioned twice. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's a
Okay.
done deal.